What's going on, world? So here we're going to debunk the rumor of the PS5 Pro GPU being close or equivalent to a 4070, RTX 4070, which I just can't for the world of me after explaining it to multiple people. Obviously, I can't touch the whole world with that. That's not even close, and that these they just don't understand how specs work. So first of all, I'm gonna close this out. I have a 4070, so we can be done with that. So let's go ahead and close this out as you see that. And let's take a look at my CPU. Ryzen 9 8945HS. This thing, base clock of 4 gigahertz and goes all the way up to 5.2 gigahertz. It blows the PlayStation CPU out of the water. So that's why I don't argue with people. Also have 32 gigabytes of RAM, you know. So I know what a 4070 can do, and I know that you need that CPU that's able to run it at full capacity as well, what it can do. Now we're going to get to some benchmarks here too that are going to explain what these cards can do. But remember, when they're showing these benchmarks, they also have the right amount of speed to max them out, you know, the memory and all that. Whereas the PS4 is locked at 16 gigs, which that's still enough, but the CPU is limited. It has a base clock of 3.0 gigahertz, and it can have a variable of going up to 3.5. It's limited there. So it wouldn't even be able to handle the 4070 properly. They'd have to change around so much. But like I said, people are just uneducated and ignorant, and they just believe nonsense. And the thing about Digital Foundry too is that they're owned by IGN now, if y'all didn't know that. So let's go ahead and get into this. Like, subscribe, y'all, if y'all like this. I'll be bringing you more content, more stuff about aspects about this. You know, when we talk about specs and all that, streaming, all types of content. And let me know what y'all think after this.
Ever since the PS5 Pro reveal happened, everyone has been asking me just how well is it going to perform. Over the past year here on the channel, I've been talking about the leaks, and video after video, my expectations have not only been confirmed, but Sony's own video validated it outright. But over this past week, PC gamers and console fanboys from both sides have been trying to recreate a PS5 Pro equivalent PC. The main reason is the Pro's price tag puts it within spitting distance of a decent...
Guys, that would be stupid. If you have the chance to create a PC, blow it out the water. Why would you want to get such a limited PC, which you'd have to get a new motherboard again and all that? Or if you wanted to do that, get an amazing motherboard where you can replace all the parts on it. It just doesn't make any sense to spend $800 on a PC. No, if you're going to get a PC, at least spend 1,200 bucks on it or something. You know what I mean? There's no need to do that. I'm not going to waste my time on a mediocre PC. You know, I just think that that's stupid.
Mid-ranged 1440p PC. However, this all came to a head when Destin with IGN interviewed Richard Ledbetter from Digital Foundry, and they blessed us with this headache.
Maybe I should just go to PC at this point, because this is quite expensive.
Yeah.
What do you imagine that would cost?
Probably a fair bit more. I mean, you need to have the GPU that you're going to need. I mean, if you consider a holistic view of all of the different components, the enhanced ray tracing, no AMD GPU has that at the moment. The machine learning block, no AMD GPU has that. It's almost like essentially an NVIDIA style feature set, but made by AMD. And the closest equivalent GPU you'll be looking at would be the RTX 4070.
No. They're trying to compete with a 4060 and maybe a little bit more powerful than that. No way in hell are you competing with a 47. It's going to be like almost 30% behind. I don't know why he said that. And you see, when people hear that, they'll go on a rant and put it everywhere, all over Twitter and all over the place. And it's like, really, dude? Like, I thought that you, who was supposed to be in that position, and like I said, they're owned by IGN now, Digital Foundry, kind of a shame, would be more professional and intelligent to realize that that's not even close to being true.
Sure enough, Sony fans took this clip as gospel, and given their lack of experience with PC building, they held tight to the fact that the RTX 4070 is the equivalent GPU. But is it though?
No.
Today, I want to walk you guys through the big three selling points for the PS5 Pro and debunk why the RTX 4070 is not the equivalent GPU.
Exactly.
Let's begin. Let's start with some facts. Sony claims the PS5 Pro will perform up to 45% faster than the base PS5. They didn't
Think about that. 45% faster. So if you had a 10 teraflop GPU and it was 45% faster. That means whatever test you're running, the results you get make that 45% faster. Even if you wanted to say that I want to add 50% of the teraflops, you're going to be looking at 15 teraflops. You know what I mean? Along with like AI upscaling, but that does not still make up for what you're going to be getting in total compared to the 4070. And you have some people trying to manipulate the ray tracing aspects along with the APU and all that other stuff to make it seem like it was 30 something teraflops. It's like I could do the same thing with my PC then. I could take my 4070 and manipulate that, and the distance is always going to be the same. So, just stop being ignorant. It's ridiculous. 45% is not going to get you to a 4070. There's no way in hell. You maybe a 4060, yeah.
Say more than, they didn't say just 45, they said up to. In last week's video, we determined that this figure alone would translate into getting a 40 FPS game. It would bump it up to 60 FPS, but if you like to look at it from a resolution perspective, it would go from a 1080p base resolution to about 1440p. Let's look at Hardware Unbox's RX 7700 XT for some context. Many of the GPUs that we're looking at here outclass the 1080p resolution, so let's just jump straight into 1440p. Let's take a look at the 6700 XT for example. If you watch some of my videos, I like to consider this card as kind of a Xbox Series X equivalent GPU. Yeah. If we bump that card's raw performance by 45%, we land anywhere between the RTX 3080 and the 7700 XT.
Now, hold on, Turk. You just debunked yourself. The RTX 4070 is sitting right in that range.
Hold the phone there, viewer. No. The base PlayStation 5 is more equivalent to the RX 6700, not the XT version. Now, if you're watching this video, you likely trust Digital Foundry to this point, and they have also concluded that the 6700 is equivalent to the base PS5. Coming in around 16% slower than the faster XT variant, the base PS5 equivalent GPU would land about 62 FPS at 1440p on average, which, sure enough, if you do a bit more maths, it puts the equivalent performance to about 90 FPS, sitting right on top of the 7700 XT.
That's 100% correct. You see, we're doing math here. We're not just making up stuff.
So you might be asking yourself, what would it take to be equivalent to the RTX 4070? Again, let's throw some numbers into the maths, into this little formula, bing, bang, boom. The PS5 Pro would need a performance improvement of up to 65% in order to get to those massive claims.
Yeah, not 45, 65%. You need an extra 20%. And if you're going to do that, you're going to have to make sure you have the right amount of watts, the right amount of cooling, the right amount of space, the motherboard, the right amount of CPU speed. You can't even do that with what you have now, barely. You know what I mean? So this is where I say that this is where common sense is lacking, or just people just don't understand the way things work, and they just take it from the way somebody else says it, and they just hold on to it, but they don't understand what that means. Because if they did, they wouldn't believe that. They would know automatically, wait, no, that's not possible. And the price point too. That card's like a $500 something card with tax, you almost $600.
That is a lot of FPS. When you're talking about a PC, guys, this is what it takes to be considered a mid-range card in the year 2024.
You would need an extra 30%
Since we're talking PS5 Pro, this same logic applies if we bump the resolution to 4K, where the base PS5 equivalent GPU would be around 35 FPS, and the Pro would be just around 50. Again, it is slower than the RTX 4070. Even if you don't believe these raw performance claims and you want to focus on the custom machine learning silicon that Nib was alluding to, we gotta ask ourselves, what does this feature really do? For the uninitiated, FSR is AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution. The goal is to take a lower resolution frame and enhance it to a larger resolution without the use of dedicated hardware. FSR is compatible with many vendors across generations of GPUs, making it a relatively robust open source solution for video games. PSSR, or PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, is Sony's proprietary AI model that runs on dedicated machine learning hardware.
And the thing about this too is that a lot of people are blowing this up. It's still not what you think. You see, If this is new to you, it's because you just don't understand it. This has been on the market for a very long time in the PC world. They were even using FSR on consoles for the longest. They're not doing anything new. They just changed the label to make it theirs, and they're tweaking the FSR for PlayStation because they don't have NVIDIA technology. So you have to have AMD coding and technology, which is still FSR. PSSR is still FSR, but it's just Sony has the power to mess around with it as much as they can to tweak it to their consoles with Mark Cerny and people like that. But it still has a limitation when you're CPU bound. There's only so much it can do for you. Definitely if the engine isn't optimized and you're dealing with something like Unreal Engine 5 that's very CPU heavy, a lot of games now are more CPU heavy than ever. These modern games, because you got all these hyper details that need to run at 60 frames. You need speed to run. You see what I mean? To move it. So no matter what, it's not going to do no native 4K 60. Anybody that tells you that, GTA, not happening. It'll be like 1440p or something, or 1500p at 60, right? And then again, you also have the settings that you guys are not seeing that don't exist on consoles, where you have like 15 different settings on PC. You can set from low, medium, high, very high, ultra, right? And then see what type of ray tracing you want, frame generation, all those things. Like you're not seeing any of that. You can't change any of that. They'll be putting that on medium and stuff. Because I'd rather take settings on ultra at 1440p than native 4K medium settings because it's still going to look better. So there's a lot more to it than just 4K 60. There's also all the settings and sliders that they don't tell you about. There's engine optimization. You see what I mean? And then there's the game optimization, because people are just rushing out all these games to make you think that you need something more powerful, but the games are unfinished and the engines are not done. But let's continue.
Built into the PS5 Pro's processor. The main difference here is that with the dedicated piece of hardware, Sony can provide developers a more efficient and better performing mechanism to enhance a game's clarity with minimal impact on raw system performance.
Yes.
Now, we still need to learn more about how PSSR performs and how well it actually clears up an image, but the best analog we have today is NVIDIA's Deep Learning Supersampling, or DLSS.
Yeah.
NVIDIA's tech requires its latest architectures to run and has been well refined over the past 6 years. So it makes sense that many supposed well-informed enthusiasts would make the jump, saying, well, these two custom AI-enhanced upscalers should be equivalent, right? Again, not so fast, guys. Tap the brakes. As always, the devil is in the details.
Yes.
In principle, if we take a low enough input resolution, a dedicated machine learning component should perform better than a more generic solution. However, as we increase that base internal resolution, both methods can resolve finer objects more cleanly. The theory is one thing, but can a non-accelerated upscaler be equivalent to a dedicated hardware unit? Guys, I hate to break it to you, but I answered this question nearly a year and a half ago. I thoroughly analyzed FSR and DLSS using real-time rendered graphics in-game with a specialized tool called VMAF to process over 100 gigs of footage into a digestible user score. I also made a frame-by-frame illustration of that score using those clips, and I showed you guys the difference between the two technologies. Now, I'll post a link in the description in case you're curious how it pans out, but here's the TLDR. At 1080p, DLSS can upscale from about 635p, and it does perform measurably better. But we're not upscaling from that low of a resolution here. We're talking about the PS5 Pro, so let's bump it up to 4K. Even if we use a 1080p internal resolution, of course up to 4K, FSR and DLSS perform effectively the same, at least in this action scene. But let's not just take my word for it. Let's go back to some hardware and box data. They performed a subjective comparison of FSR versus DLSS in 26 different games. At 4K in quality mode, which renders at about 1440p, they found that in 65% of the games, DLSS only slightly improves clarity over FSR. In 27% of the games, DLSS was only moderately better, and in only 2 instances was DLSS significantly better. Even if we want to use performance mode, rendering at 1080p, DLSS and its custom machine learning technology are only moderately better 62% of the time.
Yeah, they would have to like release drivers for those games to even make it even better. But even then, like if you add in frame generations, then you have an even bigger improvement. So he's saying this on certain aspects, and I get what he's saying. What he's trying to tell you is that PSSR is not going to be what you think it is. You're still going to be CPU bound, and it's not going to be a major jump like they're making it out to be. It's just called marketing and trying to sell things to you. So we're giving you reality here, not a fantasy, and that's what you should want because you want to know the truth, so you can know what you're getting.
Because 60% of the time, it works every time. With that extra horsepower, though, the pros shouldn't ever have to even hit this level of resolution, unless there's some really crazy graphics horsepower that's required. So
Yeah.
yes, DLSS is better, but how much better is subjective at best and arguably marginally better at worst. To say that the inclusion of custom hardware instantly makes a device more equivalent is far from the truth, and it further proves that the RTX 40.
He's telling you this is not going to get you anywhere close to the 4070. See, this is just the raw truth, y'all. Like, subscribe, I'm bringing it to you.
70 is not an equivalent comparison.
Yeah.
Looking back at Sony's big three,
Oh,
we
no,
still
no,
have
yeah.
to talk about ray tracing equivalents. Even
More
watching DF's
manipulation.
reaction to these claims leaves me a bit perplexed.
There was the direct reference to can trace rays at 2 to 3 times the speed of PlayStation 5. Well, once again, I'm still wondering exactly what that is referencing, because
Oh, crap.
it's got like just about double the compute units. And
Well, 60 versus
Yeah.
72, which would be double. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
the point. I
At
think
least
I
he's
get
being
what you're
somewhat
saying, which is
genuine.
that
Yeah.
obviously there's
This
going to
guy
be
right
extra
here.
RT hardware per compute unit. So it's not
He's swearing that
all, it's not
bullshit.
all architectural increases. It's also just sheer brute force for more compute, right?
yeah, that's what I'm like wondering exactly what is it being attributed back to in the hardware.
Alex just nails it on the head here, which leaves me honestly dumbfounded by Richard's statements. Again, Hardware Unbox has the data to back us up. At 1440p, the RX 7700 XT is 29% slower than the RTX 4070,
Like I said, you're going to
and
get a 30%
in all
increase.
actuality, it performs similarly to an RTX 4060 Ti.
What I've been telling people. You guys ready? Hold on a second here. Let's go to my damn page. I've been saying this for quite some time to people. Even in my most recent video, right here, PS5 Pro equals RTX 4060, not 4070. We go take a look at some more stuff right here. And guys, I've made videos. It can match a 4070, you see right here. No, wait, 4080, 4090, stop. Yeah, they go that far, some of these people. And I'm like, no, you know what I mean? And then I said 45% better CPU, 28% better RAM. In these videos, I tell people that it goes to a 4060s range, but they want to sit there and argue. And I'm just like, yeah, y'all don't understand what y'all talking about. And I broke it down too.
Now, I'm no fortune teller in this regard. Still, given AMD's track record with ray tracing, the likelihood that RDNA 4 is going to be able to squeeze out an additional 30% more ray tracing performance, it's far from a slam dunk. Even Alex is not convinced, suggesting that these other improvements are minor iterative enhancements, not architectural leaps. Of course, we don't have all the answers or the details right now. It just seems really weird for Richard to make the RTX 4070 leap. It just seems off base from reality. So we've debunked the big three from Sony and how Digital Foundry has equated that to the 4070. Still, there's one more point that console enthusiasts probably have missed. The RTX 4070 has even more features built in that the Pro just simply doesn't have.
Like frame
Color me
generation.
crazy though, but I think when you have extra things beyond a standard and what you're comparing to, that by definition doesn't make it equivalent. Regardless though, the RTX 4000 series of GPUs is genuinely a potent piece of kit for the modern PC gamer. The most significant benefit of NVIDIA's cards is the inclusion of hardware-accelerated optical flow transformations. If that doesn't sound familiar, here's the marketing buzzword, frame generation. Now, you might say,
But Turk, we can use FSR-based frame generation. You've debunked yourself yet again.
on the contrary, skeptical viewer, I just debunked the entire equivalence argument. First, FSR 3's frame generation fundamentally differs from NVIDIA's approach, and the results play into NVIDIA's hand. Both aspects are not equivalent. Second, if you believe in requiring custom machine learning silicon as a requisite for equivalence, having this extra feature, it just further disqualifies it. And rounding out the feature set, we've got to remember NVIDIA's Reflex, RTX Video Super Resolution, G-Sync support, and all of their other AI features, which sadly, many of AMD's alternatives, they're just left in the dust.
Yep.
At the end of the day, the PS5 Pro is truly an impressive piece of hardware.
Yeah.
I actually agree with many console warriors when they say making an equivalent PC is going to be more expensive than the Pro.
But why?
However, given the 4 points that I've debunked
Get a
today,
much better one.
we can get pretty dang close, right at about $830, including a Windows key and a keyboard and mouse for new players. But guys, gaslighting yourself into thinking you have to pick up an RTX 4070 to build a PS5 Pro equivalent, it just seems silly. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this type of a PC,
So there y'all have it. Let me know what y'all think after the truth is gotten revealed. Then you can just shut down everything. Guys, get this video out as much as possible. You know what I mean? Because this is what we need here. We need facts here. You know, we need stats. We need math. Not a bunch of blah, blah, blah. And fantasy and nonsense. And making up stuff that isn't true. But there I have it. All right, y'all. Glad to do this. Y'all have a great day, evening, night, wherever you're at. Peace out.